When most people think of Jamaica, their minds jump straight to a picture-perfect postcard. Endless stretches of golden sand, turquoise waters glimmering like glass under the Caribbean sun, and reggae rhythms floating along the breeze. It's a paradise the world loves to visit. But for many Jamaicans, that paradise has long been out of reach. For decades, ordinary citizens have been fenced out of their own beaches, the very same shores where their ancestors fished, farmed, and prayed. In 2025, that reality is beginning to shift. The Jamaican government has announced a bold new beach access policy, one that promises to tear down barriers and reopen the coast to its rightful owners, the people. This is not just about leisure. It's about dignity, justice, and national sovereignty. Stay tuned, because today we're unpacking the long battle for Jamaica's beaches, the details of this groundbreaking policy, and what it could mean for the future. And don't forget to subscribe, because this story is about much more than tourism. It's about reclaiming heritage and rewriting the meaning of independence. For Jamaicans, the beach is more than a place to tan or swim. It's life itself. The shoreline has always been woven into the cultural, spiritual, and economic fabric of the island. At dawn in St. Mary, fishermen push their wooden canoes into the surf, repeating the same ritual their grandfathers once taught them: reading the currents, watching the seabirds, and trusting the sea for survival. On Sundays in Portmore, families cram into taxis with coolers of fried chicken, ackee, and breadfruit, headed to the shore for picnics filled with food, music, and laughter. In Negril, barefoot children chase one another across the sand, using driftwood as goalposts in improvised football matches, their laughter carried by the waves. And for Rastafarians, the sea is more than recreation, it is a temple. They gather by the waves to chant, reflect, and reconnect with the natural world in ceremonies of renewal. The beach is livelihood, culture, and spirit all in one. It's where Jamaicans fish, play, pray, and heal. So imagine returning to the very cove where your grandfather taught you to swim, only to find a locked gate and a sign that reads, "Private property, no entry." That is the reality thousands of Jamaicans have faced for decades. The story of exclusion began in the mid-20th century, when Jamaica leaned heavily on tourism as a pillar of its economy. Resorts mushroomed across Montego Bay, Ocho Rios, and Negril. Investors, many of them foreign, snapped up prime beachfront land. At first, locals still had small footpaths to the shore. They could slip through familiar routes to fish, gather, or simply sit by the water. But gradually, fences went up. Security posts were built. No trespassing signs appeared where there had once been free passage. By the 1980s and 1990s, many Jamaicans began to feel like strangers in their own land. Beaches were marketed worldwide as paradise, but to locals, paradise had a price tag they couldn't afford. Some beaches began charging entry fees too high for working-class families. Others closed altogether, available only to resort guests. Here's the irony. Under Jamaican law, the foreshore, the strip of sand between high and low tide, is public domain. Nobody owns it, but without access roads or pathways, that right meant little. Resorts controlled the land leading to the water, and with that control, they effectively locked out the people. To many Jamaicans, it felt like colonialism rebranded, not enforced with whips and chains, but with wristbands, fences, and cabanas. The exclusion sparked growing anger. Communities organized protests outside resort gates, demanding access. Civil society groups held forums, reminding people that independence was hollow if they couldn't even touch their own shoreline. Musicians began writing songs about beaches lost to profit. Poets spoke of fences as scars across the nation's memory. The conversation became larger than a single parish. It became a national debate about identity. By 2025, the government could no longer ignore the pressure. After years of public outcry, officials announced the Beach Access Policy, a sweeping plan to guarantee that every Jamaican must have the right to enjoy their beaches. Hotels would now be required to provide public pathways. New public beach parks would be developed. Existing parks would be upgraded with facilities, bathrooms, lifeguards, vending stalls. And clear signs would mark which beaches were open, so Jamaicans would no longer be harassed or turned away. As the Prime Minister declared during his campaign, every Jamaican must have access to their beaches. Behind the statistics are human stories of pain and resilience. Carlton, a fisherman from St. Mary, comes from a long line of men who work the sea. But when a resort rose nearby, guards blocked him from dragging his boat across the sand. "How me 5 feet me pick me dem?" he asked. "If me cyan reached DC?" For Carlton, exclusion wasn't politics, it was survival. Marcia, a vendor in Negril, once made her living selling fried fish and festival to beachgoers. Tourists loved her food, but when access was cut off, her customers disappeared. Her livelihood collapsed, and Shunny, a 12-year-old from Kingston, had never seen the ocean until her school organized a trip to Harmony Beach Park. Standing before the vast blue sea for the first time, she whispered, "Me even know D what a blue so." That simple moment of wonder captured exactly what generations of children had been denied. Multiply these stories by thousands, and you understand why the beach struggle became impossible to ignore. The beach access policy rests on 5 key pillars. First, access first. Developers must provide clear, visible public pathways to the sea. No more hidden back alleys disguised as entry points. Second, beach parks for all. The model is Harmony Beach Park in Montego Bay, opened in 2021 after a $1.3 billion investment. Safe, clean, and vibrant, it has become proof that public beaches can be dignified and world-class. Now Negril Public Beach Park is next, with upgrades planned for Priory, Success, and Pajee. Third, facilities and safety. Public beaches will feature bathrooms, lifeguards, lighting, and proper waste management. Fourth, economic opportunity. Vendors will be given licensed stalls, ensuring small businesses and community members benefit from the beach economy. Fifth, legal clarity. Citizens will finally have their rights codified and enforced. No more confusion, no more harassment. This is not just about tearing down fences. It is about restoring dignity, creating livelihoods, and ensuring fairness. Now, as groundbreaking as the beach access policy sounds, Jamaica is about to find out that passing a law is only the beginning. Turning words into real freedom is the hard part. The first major challenge is legal resistance. Resorts and property owners have already hinted that they won't accept these new rules without a fight. They'll argue in court that their investments gave them the right to control the land leading to the shore. For them, public access threatens exclusivity, the very thing they market to wealthy tourists. And since some resorts are backed by powerful multinational companies, these cases could drag on for years. If the state wavers, fences will stay up, and the policy will be reduced to just pretty promises. Next comes enforcement. Who exactly will make sure hotels build pathways and keep them open? Will it fall to parish councils, NEPA, the Tourism Enhancement Fund, or the local police? Unless clear lines of responsibility are drawn, resorts will exploit loopholes. A law without teeth is just paper. Jamaicans have seen this story before with other policies that sounded good but died in execution. This time, people are demanding that promises meet reality. Then there's funding. Building beach parks, hiring lifeguards, installing bathrooms, and managing waste all cost money. Jamaica's economy is growing, but resources are stretched. The government says part of the financing will come from tourism taxes and partnerships with private investors. That sounds good in theory, but citizens will be watching closely to see if the facilities are actually built and maintained or if the money disappears into bureaucracy. And don't forget the environmental test. More public access means more people on the sand, and that brings challenges, litter, overuse, and potential damage to delicate ecosystems. Jamaica's mangroves, reefs, and turtle nesting sites are already under pressure from climate change and coastal development. Without careful zoning and education, today's victory for people could become tomorrow's disaster for nature. All of this means one thing. The beach access policy is not the final victory. It's just the opening battle. The real success will depend on enforcement, financing, sustainability, and above all, political will. This fight over sand and sea may seem small to outsiders, but for Jamaicans, it's part of a much bigger journey, the unfinished struggle for sovereignty. Think about the direction the country is moving in. In recent years, Jamaica has reignited debates about removing King Charles III as head of state, finally breaking the symbolic ties to monarchy. There's also the growing call for reparations, demanding that Britain acknowledge and pay for centuries of slavery and exploitation. Now add to that the fight for beaches. Together, these moves send a clear message: Jamaica belongs to Jamaicans. Independence in 1962 was only the beginning. True independence means reclaiming not just political symbols, but the very land and sea that define the nation's identity. For centuries, enslaved Africans worked plantations that made Britain rich, but they themselves were denied freedom. Generations later, their descendants were told that if they wanted to touch their own shoreline, they had to pay. That was more than just economic exclusion. It was historical trauma repeated in new form. By opening the beaches to everyone, Jamaica is doing more than providing leisure. It is restoring pride, teaching children that their heritage is theirs, and declaring that no gate, no fence, and no resort can erase the people's connection to their land. Jamaica is not alone in this struggle. Across the Caribbean, nations have wrestled with the same question: who really owns the shoreline? Take Barbados. Its laws are clear. All beaches are public, no matter how many luxury villas line the sand. Tourists might pay thousands for a view, but Bajans still walk freely across the same beaches. It's a model many Jamaicans point to as proof that development and access can coexist. Contrast that with the Bahamas, where clashes have erupted repeatedly when developers tried to block locals from their beaches. Citizens pushed back, staging protests and forcing the government to step in. And in St. Lucia, disputes over coastal access flare up as tourism expands. Families who once launched fishing boats freely now face locked gates and guards. Jamaica's bold beach access policy could set a regional precedent. If successful, it will show that Caribbean nations can both welcome visitors and protect the rights of their citizens. It could spark a wave of similar policies across the region, making access not just a privilege, but a regional standard. So, what are the key signs to look for this year? First, cabinet approval. The policy is on the table, and once passed, it becomes the legal framework for change. Second, construction and upgrades. Negril Public Beach Park is slated for expansion. Priory, Success, and Pajee are on the list for upgrades. These projects will be the test cases. If they succeed, confidence will grow. If they stall, public frustration will explode. Third, the courts. Resort owners are likely to sue, and the outcomes of those cases will set powerful precedents. Will the court side with people or profit? Fourth, community engagement. Watch how ordinary Jamaicans are included. Are vendors given stalls? Are lifeguards trained locally? Are beach wardens drawn from the community? These details will show whether the policy is truly about empowerment or just optics. Fifth, international reaction. Global investors are watching too. Some may resist, but others might embrace the policy as part of sustainable tourism. How the world responds could shape Jamaica's economic path. 2025 is the year the tide turns one way or the other. Jamaica's beaches are inheritance, not amenities. This policy is more than infrastructure. It's a moral correction, restoring a public bond between people and sea. The test won't be speeches, but signs, paths, lifeguards, clean facilities, fair vending, and fearless enforcement when gates try to reappear. If Jamaica succeeds, it sets a Caribbean standard, development without dispossession. If it fails, fences return quietly. We'll be tracking Negril, Priory, Success, and Pajee, the courtrooms and the coastlines where this lives or dies. If you believe access is a right, not a privilege, like this video, share it, and subscribe for updates and deeper dives.